Previously on this channel, we analyzed the two main characters of Devil May Cry by looking at their visual design and make interpretations based on their main colors. The first character analysis video was based on the symbolism of red and blue being associated with body and mind. Then I extensively looked at the secondary colors of Dante and Vergil, which I believe to be silver and golden, which are being associated with the moon and the sun. I also did a special episode about Vergil only, focusing purely on his mentality in Devil May Cry 3, but I really enjoyed working on my video about mirrors in Devil May Cry and explaining the psychology of the main characters on a deeper level. But in this video, I would like to yet again return to Vergil's character design, and this time I would like to expand upon this topic by also taking a closer look at the symbols and patterns that can be seen all over Vergil's coat and give you my interpretation about what they could depict. So let's take a closer look at the topic I haven't talked about yet, the symbols on Vergil's coat and how I interpret them. You can see them on the chest, shoulders and upper arm on the coat in DMC 3, 4 and 5, as well as on V's EX costume. However, if you zoom in closer to the buttons on the coat, you can notice two intertwining serpents. And a serpent-like pattern can also be noticed on the insides of Vergil's DMC5 coat if you zoom in on it. So I think we can safely assume that these are supposed to be snakes, as they have the clear shape of it. However, the shapes on the outside of the coat is a little bit tricky to interpret, but before I dive into the symbol on the front of the coat, I would like to take a look at the separate shapes that can be seen on the upper arms of the coat, which first appears in DMC5. At first look, it reminds me of a tree and some sort of a thorny vine or a rose even, but because of the straight line in the middle having two serpent-like shapes coiling around it, it really reminds me of the caduceus, the staff of Hermes, which is also an alchemical symbol, could be found in DMC1 as well, a staff with two intertwining snakes coiling around it, symbolizing the union of opposites. In alchemy, Hermes' staff, the caduceus, symbolizes transformation, the reconciliation of opposites, and the planetary marrow, Mercury. The entwined snakes represent the balancing of opposing forces essential for the alchemical great work, a process of internal and material transmutation, while the overall symbol represents the alchemical journey toward enlightenment. And with that, we also got three different parts in Vergil's coat that possibly depicting snakes: the shoulder, the buttons, and the underside of the coat. On a side note, it seems like this same spiral-shaped twin snake symbol also appears on Dante's design, as it can be seen on the skull's head as well, which is on the Rebellion. And a similar tiny skull can be seen on the back of Dante's coat, with the same intertwining snake symbol. So it seems like Dante's DMC5 design also features a little bit of snakes, but it's not as strong as on Vergil's design. I believe the snakes on Dante are there to hint at him being the second snake, whose fate and story gets entangled with Vergil, while also hinting at how their story ends with eventually reuniting with each other and teaming up against their shared enemies. So let's take a closer look at what snakes could possibly symbolize and tell us about the character. Since he is wielding a katana, Vergil's design and honorable fighting style clearly wants to create an image of that of a Japanese samurai, especially in his Sin Devil Trigger form, featuring shapes that really reminds me of samurai helmets and armor, especially around the shoulders. Therefore, when it comes to snake symbolism, I would like to take a look at the Japanese folklore first. In Japanese mythology, snakes are often associated with water due to their nature of being found close to water sources, or the way rivers can be seen as slithering snakes carving their way into the landscape. Take for example the myth of Yamata no Orochi, the 8-headed serpent god, who is said to symbolize the unpredictable He river that the farmers relied on for water, yet it was also the cause of destructive floods. In my mind, I already connected Vergil with flowing water previously, as it is also a very important aspect of Shinto religion, as it is needed to cleanse the spirit from impurities. Flowing water, after all, is the opposite of stagnant water, which can become polluted. I can even imagine Vergil symbolizing flowing water, while Dante being associated with stagnant water due to their opposite nature of one being nomadic and constantly on the move, while the other is waiting in stagnation. There is a similar concept in the game Elden Ring, where the Scarlet Rot is countered by flowing water, so swordsmen developed a technique called the flowing water technique in order to fight against the god of Rot. This can be seen in the Blue Dancer charm, depicting a blind swordsman dressed in blue. This can explain Melene's flowing water technique, as she uses everything she can to stop the rot eating away her body. And even though Vergil doesn't have any description that connects him with water, the imagery is clear when you look at his boss fight arenas, almost all of them featuring water. In the first Devil May Cry, the second Nilo Angelo fight takes place upon a fountain of water, and the last fight also features a puddle of water in the middle of the room. Furthermore, the room where you fight Nilo for the last time was originally designed to feature flowing water, which was supposed to be pouring out from the fountains next to the stairs, but they decided not to implement it into the game. Then in DMC 3, Vergil finally gets his actual flowing water boss arenas. In his first fight, there is rain falling, and in his final fight, there is an endless flow of water coming from somewhere and pouring into the abyss below. Snakes in mythology are also symbolizing renewal, transformation, regeneration, and immortality, because of their capability of shedding their old skin to give room for the new skin below. I can see why snakes became the symbol of not only death but rebirth as well. And I love this because it is very fitting for Vergil's story arc, as he is being reborn both physically and spiritually at the end of DMC 5, as if coming back from death and going through a transformation. Urizen healed him in body, while we healed him in mind and soul. And if he or Urizen is like a snake that is shedding its skin and being reborn, it could explain those hanging curtains with shedded snake skin-like shapes and texture hanging from everywhere inside the Qliphoth. And before I close this topic, I could also mention the Western symbolism of snakes that can also apply to Vergil in some way. Snakes are also associated with greed, gluttony, and endless hunger for more, as if they want to devour everything. This image of snakes was probably born because of their capability to extend their jaws and devour prey items much bigger than themselves. This greed can be seen in almost every media, like the previously mentioned Elden Ring as well. Take for example Rykard wanting to devour the very gods.
Together we will devour the very gods.
And this hungry snake nature can also be applied to Vergil, as he wanting more than he can physically handle, not only feeling a greedy desire for more and more power, but in DMC5, while being Urizen, he is also associated with the first sin, as he devours the quote-unquote apple, the powerful fruit of the Qliphoth tree, as if a snake was whispering in his ear to do so. So far, I avoided talking about the major symbol around Vergil's coat, which at first also looks like a serpent, but I would argue that it is actually a centipede. I have two reasons to say that. First is because of those little thorns around the serpent body can be seen as the many legs of a centipede. Secondly, if you look at the head of this creature, it has a snake-like tongue indeed, but it also has jaws that really reminds me of the jaws of the centipede demon in Devil May Cry 3. The centipede demon is called the Gigapede. not having too much lore description unfortunately, as it is being described as a simple demon who managed to escape through the barrier between the two worlds and invade the human world. You encounter it inside the Tamanni Grove, offering a gimmicky boss fight as it slithers through the holes in the wall. Similarly to snakes, centipedes in mythology having both good and bad things associated with them. At one hand, due to their hiding nature, they are associated with impurity, pollution, and the dead. For example, there was a yokai called the Omukade, a giant centipede in Japanese mythology who crawled across the mountains. When it comes to their presentation in video games, the first thing comes to mind is the centipedes in Sekiro, possessing dead bodies and preventing them from dying, reanimating their corpses. It even possesses the giant ape, which even after being beheaded, the centipede infesting it, making it come to life and animating its body, resulting in the ape starting to move in a centipede-like, slithering way. On the other hand, however, centipedes are quite strong creatures in their own league. Some species display a pretty aggressive feeding behavior. Therefore, on the other hand, the centipede in Japan were also associated with success in battle, the symbol of both strength and resilience, and became a symbol used by samurai. One interesting way to connect all this with Vergil is the way his pure soul got sort of corrupted by the fear he experienced as a child. Then later his mind also literally got corrupted by Mundus and the Nilo Angelo armor, taking control over him against his will. So I don't see the centipede as Vergil himself being a corrupting force, but more like an aspect of him being corrupted. However, at the other hand, centipedes are seen as powerful creatures, used as a symbol even by the samurai, which is also fitting for Vergil, taking pride in his strength. And now, as the centipede symbol also been explained, I can draw a comparison between Vergil's quote in DMC 3 and in 5, as the symbols actually change quite a lot. The reason why I leave the 4th game out of this is because the pattern on his coat in that game is pretty much the same as in DMC 3, except his outfit had been changed a little bit here and there. However, I can mention that this snake, or perhaps even dragon, symbolism can explain why his pants having a scaly texture in DMC 4, which was modeled after the DMC 3 CGI render. But due to the graphical limitations at the time, this texture couldn't really be implemented into the game. So on the DMC 3 coat, there is only one huge symbol can be seen, depicting the centipede. However, the tail of the centipede starts off as the previously mentioned twin snakes that turns into the centipede. So this original coat seems to be depicting snakes that turns into a centipede, which could be hinting at Vergil's soul starting to become corrupted. This could explain why Vergil's quote in DMC 5 does not really feature this centipede symbol. Instead, it not only gets almost completely covered up, but it even gets replaced by multiple snake symbols, which can be seen on 3 different parts of the coat. So this could hint at Vergil actually being healed from the corruption, the pollution of the centipede, as just like a snake, he has been reborn and shed his old skin. However, the complete centipede can be seen in its full form, without any snakes, on V's EX costume, as if his human side is carrying the corruption that affected his soul. Although, like I said, the centipede also can be seen as a strong creature, and it being golden on V, representing his pride and power. Thank you for watching this little video about interpreting the symbols on Vergil's clothing. Originally, this project was meant to be a big video where I tell everything about Vergil's design, including a recap about the symbolism of blue and gold, and then after the snake and centipede part, I was going quite off topic and also been talking about things like items that can be found right next to the Nilo Angelo fights. So after I wrote the script and woke up the next day, I realized I should probably just focus on the main topic that I wanted to talk about, instead of talking all kinds of things about Vergil all over the place. So I ended up cutting this video shorter and focus on interpreting the symbols. But anyways, thank you again for watching, and see you in the next one. Take care.